Back here on the Cam Show, Rogue Media Sports Network, Celtics open up their preseason schedule tonight against the Memphis Grizzlies. They're finally putting on the real uniforms, and they're ready to take on what is going to be a weird season, to say the least. So to break it all down and to tell you what the Celtics team is going to be able to do this year, we bring in old friend of the show, Dan Greenberg, Barstool Greenie, coming in from Barstool Sports. And Dan, we'll start with this. We knew after Tatum goes down in New York, it's going to be a weird offseason. Some might even say a depressing offseason with all that transpired. So how good does it feel that even though it's a preseason game, the Boston Celtics are going to take the floor for a basketball game tonight?
I mean, hopefully this is coming through. My mic was screwing up earlier. But to answer your question, it feels fantastic, right? I think we've gone through, or at least personally, I've gone through every stage of denial, right? Acceptance, rage. We've mourned the departures. We've mourned the Tatum injury. I think that, minute clip of him working out did wonders for, I think, all of our psyches. But at the end of the day, life is better when the Celtics are playing basketball. And, it's been 80 days since their final summer league game. So it's been a long time coming, but just even though it's a fake game and the expectations and everything about this team around it in terms of what they're even going to be able to do, that's drastically changed. But the fact is they're going to be playing basketball. We get to watch them play basketball. And that at the end of the day is that's all I need in life. So I could not be more excited, even knowing everything that's happened since May 12th, 2025.
Yeah, and obviously you have followed this team closer than pretty much anybody, let's be honest, for a generation now. And there's been some weird off seasons with the Celtics, maybe more so than any Boston team of my lifetime. We've seen a couple of summers each where the expectations either skyrocket or they plummet overnight. I'm thinking of, the big trade in 2013 and how that changes the future of the Celtics, and, adding Kyrie at 17, how that changes the expectations of the Celtics. But if you had one that was quite as weird as this, because obviously the expectations plummet, but it feels like a 1-year thing.
Yeah, I look at this more like the era post Big Three trade. So like the 2013 to 2015 pre-Isaiah. So this was after the Big Three were gone, before they traded for Isaiah at the deadline in February. You were kind of just for the first time in forever, this weird semi-tanking, you have a lot of young talent, like a young Smart, a young Avery Bradley. So you're excited to see what they look like with expanded roles. But, the expectation of winning wasn't really what those seasons were about. Then Isaiah came over in February of 2015. They went on that huge run and ended up making the playoffs. So for me, my excitement is more, which version are they going to be, right? Because they have the top end talent that's similar to the post Isaiah trade team. So is this team, can they win around 40 games and squeak into the playoffs? Or is it going to be like the pre Isaiah trade teams that were 45 and 88 and couldn't beat anybody? What's unique about this season is either option is a good thing for you moving forward, because if you overachieve and you win 40, 41 games, sneak into the play-in, sneak into the first round, whatever, that probably means that a lot of your unproven young talent on this roster proved to be playable assets and teams and pieces to the team that you would want to keep for when Tatum is back and when you're rebuilding this summer. If it goes as many think it may, and it's a disaster and you're winning, in the mid 30s and maybe you're on the play-in bubble, that's okay too, because it then arms Brad Stevens with the highest pick he's ever had as GM of this team heading into a huge summer, whether that's going to be a pick to keep or to flip for a, more proven ready now player for the next iteration of the roster. So it's a weird situation where there's no bad outcome. So it's for the first time in 10 years, we just have a season that's based off vibes. We'll see who sticks. We'll see who flops. It's a sink or swim season for a lot of the young guys. And it's weird because for 10 years, we've been stressing over every single dribble because of what the expectations were. Now it's kind of like, let's get weird. Let's try new lineups. Let's try new ways, to play. Let's play fast. Let's just try all these things that you couldn't really experiment with when you had, title or bust expectations. Let me ask you, when was the last time the Celtics ever had a season where they could afford to give young guys developmental minutes?
It's been a while, man. Yeah.
10
Over a
years.
decade. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I'm just pumped, because while it's a bummer, because there's nothing better than having a title contending roster. Like, the last 2 years were basically fake life. I mean, we witnessed unarguably one of the greatest constructed teams in NBA history.
Yeah.
We are now on the opposite end of that spectrum and then some this year. But knowing that Tatum will be back, it's sort of like when David Robinson got hurt for the Spurs in the mid-90s. Then you had Steph Curry get hurt in, I think it was 1920 or 2021. When you're a title contender, you are almost never afforded these weird gap years to really reset and maybe acquire an asset to carry you through the next wave of your roster. The Celtics are never going to be close to lottery contention as long as Jayson Tatum is on a basketball court. So while it sucks, obviously, that he got hurt, and it sucks that they had to offload those deals to get under the second apron, this is not like a normal rebuild where all their talent is gone, not coming back, and we now have to start from scratch. We have a 1-year window to add to a roster that we already know, when Tatum is healthy, is a contending roster. So to me, I just think it's a unique opportunity that, fans should be excited about, but try not to be mad when it looks bad, because we are now relying on guys that have almost zero NBA experience to play heavy rotation minutes.
Yeah, and who are some of those guys you're thinking could actually break out and be an asset for the Celtics, whether it be a trade asset or, like you said, those guys who just have a good year and stick around? Like, are there any names that you're like, this is a guy to watch out for this year?
To me, it's the big three. It's Jordan. Well, they're not really a big three, how we think of big threes, but it's three guys. It's Jordan Walsh, Baylor Shireman, and Hugo Gonzalez, right? Jordan Walsh is sort of in a prove-it deal. He's about to enter restricted free agency. I think he may even be unrestricted because he was a second-round pick. But either way, he's at the end of his rookie deal. So he's always had flashes and the frame and the potential. But given that we weren't a developmental roster type team, he never could play. Well, now with Tatum gone, they have a need for a 6'7", 6'8", 3-and-D wing. Well, he's talked the talk this summer. He showed flashes. He basically needs to prove that he can be a playable asset. I think based on what we saw from Baylor Shireman last year, towards the end of the year, where March basketball can sort of be a little bit fake, he had real moments. And his shooting, I think, needs to be consistent. And I think that's the thing for him. I think a lot of people bill him as the same type of shooter as Sam Hauser, completely different type of player. But given how much shooting this roster has lost, if we're going to play the way we play when Tatum is back, they need reliable spacing. And he, by default, is brought in to be that reliable spacing. I also want to see what he can do defensively, because we know to get on the floor for Joe, you have to play defense. And he was really adamant about that in the Vegas Summer League. So, he's a guy, based on what he showed to the end of last year, can that be real when basketball matters, that is being played outside of like March and April when teams are ready to go on vacation? And then Hugo, I just need him to be the prince that was promised. He is to date the highest draft pick Brad has ever made at 28.
Wow.
If we talk about point of attack defense, we talk about intensity and just the Marcus Smart effect of diving on loose balls, competing hard as hell. That's what I think he can give you as a rookie. I don't know if his jumper is going to translate. He's only 19. I don't think he'll play, 20 minutes a game right off the bat. But if you think of how this team is going to succeed this year, it's going to succeed with playing fast, causing chaos on the defensive end, attacking the offensive glass and winning the margins. Those were all things that he showed he could do in Vegas. So if we could potentially have a guy who could come off the bench and he's got great size, he's got great length, he competes his ass off, like that's a guy that I think fans right away are, easily going to fall in love with. And he gives you something that, they really don't have on the roster, right? Their point of attack defense has taken a major hit with, Drew leaving and Tatum being out. So if he can provide that, I don't know. I mean, we've just never seen a pick this high before. So I just want to see, like, Brad still has to prove that he can draft, and he could only work with, if he's picking in the 40s and in the 30s, those are crapshoots. But, Peyton Pritchard turned out to be a player. I think he was in, 26th maybe, or 22nd, right around that range. You can find guys in the late 20s. I want to see if this is going to be Brad's guy that he identifies that late in the draft.
And now let's look at the other end of the roster, because obviously Jaylen Brown, for a season at least, he's your face. That's your guy. That's your superstar with Tatum out. And I know right away, as soon as Tatum goes down, before he even gets off the floor, everyone's saying, "Oh, Jaylen Brown, 30 a game next year. He's gonna be dominating everybody. He's gonna have to." Don't know if the numbers are going to be quite like that, especially off a year where all his shooting numbers went down from 23-24 to 24-25. But you look at him being a leader of this team with Peyton Pritchard and Derek White in there, as well as a couple of the other stars. Can Jaylen Brown lead this group to the playoffs?
My limitation on their ceiling doesn't really have to do with any of the championship core. So I think guys like Jaylen, Derek, Pritchard, Hauser, they could all have great, awesome seasons, overachieving seasons. For me, the issue is more everything that's going to be around them that's going to limit their ceiling. Like, even if Jaylen comes out and has an all NBA caliber type season, career best, all that stuff, I'm not really sure that alone is going to make up for the deficiencies we see in the front court, the deficiencies we see on the wing, or the fact that they're relying on a handful of unproven young players to play in the rotation who historically, a guy who's never played in the NBA doesn't come right in on a team and just dominate as a second round pick. Like, that's just not realistic. So when I think of what I want to see from the championship core guys, especially Jaylen, it's more, do we see things that can translate for when Tatum is back? That's the only thing I care about. So for Jaylen, I want to see the playmaking develop. I want to see, can he continue to improve based off last year, which was his best playmaking season of his career? Well, now what does it look like when you are truly the focus of the defense, right? It's easy to play make when, all the defense is focused on Tatum and you can drive and, maximize those rotations. Well, what do things look like when you are now the number one name on the scouting report? And I think the progress we saw from him as an interior passer and just his decision-making and processing speed will be good. But this is the challenge, right? He wanted that responsibility for so long. He thinks of himself as that type of player. He's shown, I think the game 5 against the Knicks was like our little preview of what things could look like. So I don't really care more about the wins and losses, because that shit isn't important for this season. What I care about is, have you grown? Is your handle tight enough to handle that responsibility finally? Are you ready to, if Tatum comes back, I don't want to put all this pressure on him coming off his Achilles. So that would mean Jaylen has to continue to fill this primary role that we're going to see this year. So for me, it's signs like that. And I would say the same thing like Derek White. Can you now prove to be an on-ball creator and be effective that way, the same way you were as an off-ball creator playing next to Tatum? So whether that leads to wins or not, who the hell knows? But I just think we just need to see those type of signs of consistent development for me to be like, okay, he's filling his role. But I know what's going to happen. They're going to have, lower wins than expected. People are going to say, oh, Jaylen Brown's not the guy, blah, 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 while ignoring the rest of the roster. So I would just advise people, block that stuff out, focus on the progress of individual skill sets, and let's see where we net out.
So that said, and obviously you're right. Like most of this season is going to be looking at sustainability, what these role players are becoming, rather than maybe just the wins or losses. And you said earlier, it's a win-win, right? You're either looking good and there's guys who can stick around, or you're not as good, but you've actually got some better capital than you've had in a long time. So I guess putting all of that together, it might not be a playoff round or a win-loss record, but what would be the best case scenario for you for this year's Celtics?
Man, so it's tough because there's so much unknown. I'm allowing my brain, or I'm preventing my brain from even entertaining the thought that Tatum returns this season. I know how he looks, but I'm just thinking, let me just block that out.
That's got to be like a risk reward thing too, by the way. Sorry, because I think the same thing. It's like, okay, so if Jayson Tatum comes back March 27th and they're a play-in team, like, is that even what we want then? Like, do we want him rushing back from such a serious injury?
Well, so my issue with that is more, it goes back to the bigger picture of the opportunity in which the Celtics find themselves in for this one season. Knowing how expensive their roster is, they're definitely going to be a first apron team moving forward. My guess is, after they have 1 year out of the second apron, who knows? Maybe they dip back into it. When you have an expensive roster, it is imperative that you fill your trio because, Tatum and Brown on supermaxes, White makes 30 something a year. You need to surround that with playable, cheap, young talent. In the NBA, there are two ways you obtain cheap, young, playable talent. Either A, as a free agent minimum signing of a guy who maybe, didn't succeed, like a Josh Minot, right? Like he never really played in Minnesota. Maybe you're betting that here, if he has more opportunity, maybe he can prove to be a rotational bench piece. Awesome. You found one. The other way is to draft it. Well, we know the higher likelihood to find a playable young player is to pick as high as you possibly can in the draft. In the NBA, the only way to get that high pick, you can trade future picks for it, but more often than not, you have to find yourself in the lottery. So when I think of, it's non-negotiable that Brad has to find that type of player. And I think of the two ways that you obtain that player. When I think of what's best for the Celtics big picture long term, it's probably to either miss the play-in altogether or make the play-in but lose your play-in game, and then see if you get a little bit of a lottery luck to finish, I don't know, with pick 8 to 10. Like, I don't think they'll be so bad where we're talking, top 5 pick, top of the lottery, because you're going to have teams that win, 17, 18, 19 games. But if you get pick 8, can you package a couple seconds to pick 8 and move up to pick 5? Like, now I just want Brad Stevens to have as many options as possible when it comes to reshaping the roster next summer. Having said that, there's also a case to be made where, is there value in making the playoffs, even if you get swept, getting your young players playoff minutes? And this is what goes right back to the 2014, 2015 post-Isaiah trade Celtics. They were at the trade deadline, and it was, should they tank or should they try to make the playoffs? They traded for Isaiah. They finished 40-42, made the playoffs, and got demolished. Yeah. But it got Marcus Smart early playoff reps. It got Avery Bradley early playoff reps as a young player. That stuff was all valuable when you're thinking of building moving forward. But because we're in a situation where the second Tatum comes back, we're back to contending. I think it's more valuable to obtain the asset to build the roster than it is to get like Jordan Walsh playoff minutes, because chances are in the next iteration of the roster, we probably won't be seeing Jordan Walsh playoff minutes. You know what I mean? Probably, that number 8 pick could turn into a player, whether it's picked or traded, that could give you playoff minutes. So I think personally, finish around 37, 39 wins, make the play-in, lose the play-in game, and who knows? The Mavs just got lottery luck with a 1.8% chance. Why can't you get a little lottery luck and finish in the 7 to 8 range. I think that would be unbelievable when it comes to building out the next round of the roster. But if all the young players hit, okay, great. We have real pieces, and now we're changing how we have to view things. But as they stand now, I think it's in their best interest to miss the playoffs and get into the lottery.
You could use some lottery luck. We don't often get it.
We've been screwed. We've had the exact opposite.
Yeah. We could use a little bit of that.
We'll see.
Looking at Tatum a little bit, because you wrote a great blog the other day. It was actually in reference to Drake May and his game that he had in Buffalo the other night. But you captured that feeling the fan has when the guy who you're hoping is going to be the guy becomes the guy.
Becomes the guy, yep.
So my question to you is, when did you have that moment with Tatum?
Man, I mean, the easy answer is to say the second he touched the floor, but I think the real answer is the dunk on LeBron.
Yes.
Because we had the whole season of, he had a great rookie year. He led all the rookies in, playoffs, or he led the whole roster in playoff scoring as a rookie. I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, that run. So you kind of had a feeling, but the balls to try to dunk on LeBron, and then the chest bump and scream after is like, okay, we have a guy. And then it was only cemented moving forward. But it was like the whole year, you kind of knew right away that maybe something was brewing. But for me personally, it was that play that was like, oh my God, we have one. Like everything we saw during the year is now validated. I'm a firm believer. And if Jayson Tatum was passed the ball in that game 7 down the stretch instead of Terry Rozier taking every single shot, they probably would have made the finals. So that's like a whole different discussion. But for me, it was that poster and just the confidence and the fact that he had the gall to chest bump LeBron James of all people. It's like, all right, this guy is maybe wired a little bit different. Like that was like, he's wired like Larry Bird, where he's just going to just go up against the best and not be afraid. And as it turns out, in all these 8-9 years later, after every single game, we see the Celtics tweet out, oh, Jayson Tatum has done something. The first thing since Larry Bird. It's just like, he really proved out to be what we hoped for after that play.
And he was actually 19.
Right.
Which we've heard for the last 7 years here, but he was actually 19. I swear that was one of those moments that happens pretty rarely in sports where you just actually, even as an adult, have to be like, did that actually happen? Like it felt like a dream. Like a 19-year-old kid does not chest bump LeBron after he dunks on him in a game 7. Like that just doesn't happen.
Right.
I've got to end
it's like it's the same way. I'm sure you've seen it, but the clip of the Drake May throw to Diggs on the sideline. That's the moment where you're like, okay, we have a guy.
It feels like you're in a video game. Yeah.
Right. So that is the football equivalent of the LeBron dunk is like, you see that one play. It's like normal people don't make that type of play. So that's what inspired it, is like that one throw is basically, and then same thing with Roman Anthony. Like you just know it was instant impact when he came, got called up from Worcester. So, same sort of idea.
Like that stuff's just different, man. It's just different. I got to end with this, though. All the weird stuff that happened in this Celtics offseason, I want to look at something positive here.
Mm-hmm.
What is your favorite moment of the George Niang era in Boston?
Man.
So many to choose from, Dan.
It's tough. I would say, what did he say? He was on a podcast and he said, I don't know if he was talking about, I think it was Porzingis. He said something like, because he got a lot of initial pushback and blowback from fans, obviously, for whatever reason. He said something like, I could understand that you were going from like a unicorn to a minivan. And I was like, all right, that's pretty funny. He's pretty self-aware about it.
Yeah.
It reminded me of like when Melo was an Atlanta Hawk for like 15 seconds. And we never saw him play. They just like produced the jersey, and then he got, I don't know if he got traded or he retired or whatever it was, but it was a short-lived era. But I think that quote, just for the self-awareness of, he's like, I'm kind of like a pudgy, I'm the minivan. It's a little different, step down based off what they were coming from. So I can always appreciate some, self-depreciation and
Sure.
being, a fun sport about it.
Yeah, you got to feel for the guy. I know he's had his run-ins with the Celtics before, but to not actually get to play for your hometown team after playing for a
It's
month. And
tough.
the winningest NBA player of this decade, I believe,
Is
still
he?
George
Oh,
Niang.
because of all like his time on the Cavs
Yeah,
and
yeah, it's
okay.
all just added together. You had I think last year you had like 3 more wins than Tatum or something
Okay.
for the
Interesting.
2020s. It's wild. But
And
anyway,
in any other season, I'd say he can be a fine bench piece. But
right,
in a
right.
developmental year, I just don't need a 30-year-old guy stealing minutes from young wings that I need to know if they can stick around. Plus, the money you saved by dumping them was important. So, timing just didn't work out. But, in terms of a player, he's a valuable outside floor spacer. He's a proven veteran, like you said. It just the timeline just didn't work out.
Yeah, and take that 30-year-old duster who's taking minutes from the young kids. I'm going to clip that and send that to the Bruins just to make sure we're on the same page. But Dan Greenberg of Barstool Sports, Greenie, thank you so much for joining the show and help us break down this weird season that's ahead. Feels like it's going to be a win-win no matter what. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's cherish it. Try not to pull your hair out. I know I'm not going to be able to follow my own advice, 5 seconds into tonight's first preseason game. But at the end of the day, I think you're right. It just feels great to be back. It feels great to have real games to talk about. And, the next 6 or so months should be quite the roller coaster. So
it's going to be a lot of fun. We'll bring Dan back at points throughout this season
absolutely.
to keep it all together and in perspective. So Dan, thanks again. There we go. Dan Greenberg, Barstool Sports, covering the Celtics like nobody else covers the Celtics. So appreciate his time